Hi there, and welcome back to the History of Fleetwood Mac. I'm Anita. Today we're going to get into something that I've kind of been procrastinating getting into, and that is my scrapbooks. And I'm going to start with a little bit of a story on how those came to be and a little bit of why they are what they are and why we're at where we're at and why I've been procrastinating. In 1997, I had a pretty healthy collection, not remotely nearly as much as I have today, but quite a bit of stuff. I had stuff in the binders, kind of like the articles that you had seen. I had stuff in slip sleeves, like plastic sleeves, like my 8x10 photos in binders as well. And then I had a collection that I had since I was a kid, which was a lot of stuff in the old-fashioned photo albums where you'd peel back the plastic and put it on the sticky and cover it up, which is, of course, very bad for photos. Really yellowed things, just not good for your articles and such. But what I also had acquired from eBay was a assortment of the long boxes that came out in like the 90s and early 2000s, maybe earlier than that, for CDs before they would just put the CDs in the plastic containers to, anti-theft things in record stores. And looking at the boxes one day, thinking, what am I going to do with these? I've had them, I keep them because they have pictures and such. I thought, boy, that would be a really clever, cute way to make chapters in a scrapbook or something and put everything in one photo album. I think I had like the Fleetwood Mac one, Tusk. I might have had Rumors, Belladonna. So I only had a few, but I thought it would just be really cute to start it with the long box, cut up and spread out on a page. And then when you turn the page, there would be everything from Fleetwood Mac. That was a grand, brilliant idea that I had. So I went out shopping for a scrapbook, and this is again 1997. So the scrapbook craze was in full swing, but just really starting to take off. And there was a plethora, big word there, of all different sizes of scrapbooks to choose from. They had the standard 12x12, which is pretty much what we have. They had like 7x7. They had 11x17, which is what I started with, and they had even bigger, but they were almost too big. They're more like the old kinds of scrapbooks that were almost like newspaper size, and there wasn't like a plastic cover to go over the photos. There was nothing. It was a book, but it would open, but you still had to like glue your stuff down, which I didn't want to do. So I went out and I found a book that looked just like this in green, my favorite color. And each one of these had like 10 pages inside. And I came home and I started scrapbooking. And it was not long at all before I realized there's not a snowball's chance in hell that one book is going to do this collection. That was 1997. So I went out and got another and then got another. And here we are in 2025, and I have 16 volumes of these scrapbooks. These scrapbooks are, again, 11x17. Inside, the pages are roughly about 11x14. And a 50-page minimum per book would indicate 50 pages, but because they're double-sided, obviously, that's about 100 pages of photographs or, stickers, autographs, whatever I have in there. As scrapbooking got more and more popular, unfortunately, they did go to the 12x12 size, so these became kind of obsolete and are now very difficult to get. They're expensive, and there's only like one or two companies where I can not only get the books, and it seems really hard to find them in green, but also to get the pages that go in the books. It's a very hard process to do, but I'm still able to find them, thank goodness. And I try and buy them in bulk when I can, so that I have a bunch just in case they go, by way of the dodo bird or something. So that's how I got started. And the reason for the procrastination is because I really wanted to show you how everything looks in the book. I don't know why. It's just that's how I am. I didn't want to take them out like I have done with the pop-up scrapbook pages and just show you the page. I really wanted to show you in the book just because it's like a book. It looks kind of cool. But these things are heavy as hell, as you can imagine. I mean, they're very heavy. They're like tomes, and it's hard to keep open and have no glare and show you clearly. And then sorry about that, and turn the page, etc. So I just thought, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to separate them exactly what I didn't want to do and show you page by page and go from there. So that was procrastination. Also lighting. It was really difficult to come up with lighting in any way. It's still not perfect. It's just I'm doing the best I can, but you know, I never made this out to be some fancy swanky YouTube page. I love where it's going. I love what I've done so far. I love that everybody seems to be interested in it, but I'm just trying to share with people. I, you know, didn't want to go out and buy all sorts of fancy technology to do this. I wanted to share what I had with everybody. So that's why it's been procrastinated a little bit. Moving on, what with the Buckingham Nicks reissue that's coming out soon, of course I'm going to start with, you know, Buckingham Nicks. I really don't have any pages devoted to Fleetwood Mac prior to Stevie and Lindsay. My record collection and other aspects of my collection, again, as I've mentioned, clearly I'm an all-around complete Fleetwood Mac fanatic. I love everything about Fleetwood Mac from the very beginning up until now, whatever form it takes. But I am obviously very Buckingham Nicks onward focused. I just didn't feel that I have enough to put together too many pages of pre Stevie and Lindsay. I haven't. I have some, and I probably will put them together. And maybe I just will make separate videos about that at some point with the records, the scrapbooks, the magazines, things like that. Because I do have a good amount. But, you know, most of the friends that I have and you know, people like me, again, are Fleetwood Mac with Stevie and Lindsay onward. So with that being said, I'm going to start a little bit prior to Buckingham Nicks in this story, the first that I have for you. So get some coffee, an adult beverage, whatever it is. Make sure your animal's not going to be barking and stuff. I don't know what the hell she's barking at. It's like midnight, so I don't know what's going on. And she's staring at the door, which is freaking me out a little bit. But we're going to go forward with this. I was put in touch with somebody about 5 years ago, about something. Somebody was nice enough, knowing that I'm a big photo collector. They had been approached with the photo for sale. They didn't want it, which was really odd, but I'm super thankful. And I got in touch with that person. And not only did they have the one photo of Stevie, but they had 2 photos of Stevie that they were looking to sell. And when I asked about them, how they came to be, they said, oh, they were in a bunch of paperwork and other stuff pertaining to the Nicks family. And I said, well, do you have the rest of that stuff, that paperwork? No, we just left it there, not interested. And I'm like, okay, well, like, what was it? What was the stuff? I don't know, it was just paperwork, you know. And I said, no. I said, is there any way, you know, do you know that person? Is there any way you could go back and get that stuff? And they said, yeah, probably, you know. And a couple days later, they came back and they're like, yeah, we got it. It's a bunch of letters and paperwork. I don't know who these people are, who this is, what this is. And I said, no problem. How much do you want for it? They gave me a total, you know, I was paying an arm and a king's ransom for the photos as it was. So an extra $40 maybe they charged me for the other stuff. Not a problem. What I ended up getting in the mail was really, really neat. And I'm going to try and go in this without, like, you know, sounding like the Discovery Channel or, you know, Lifetime Channel, but it appears to me that the stuff that I received was, first of all, the grand finale in this video that's going to be really a neat thing for you to see is a photo of Stevie with her paternal grandfather. Now, we always hear about Stevie Nicks and her father's, wait, did I do that right? Maternal. Is it maternal for girls, paternal for boys? I think that's right. This is her mother's family. We don't hear too much about Barbara's family. We hear a lot about Jess's family. Jess Nicks, her father, and then her grandfather, A.J. Nicks, and how he took her out on the road and stuff like that. But, you know, growing up and just in the Stevie Nicks mythology, there's really not been too much about her mom. The one thing that I've mentioned when I did my records is that for The Other Side of the Mirror, Stevie Nicks does dedicate the album to her grandmother, Carmel Nicks, I believe, is what it was. And something about the Queen of Hearts or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but something that her mom and her grandmother, and it's just finally something about that side of the family. Stevie, of course, has always been really close to her mother and father, but it's just, like I said, the most that we hear about is Jess and AJ Nix. The stuff that I received appears to be from her mother's birth father. And come to find out, once I received this stuff, after a little bit of research, her grandfather, her mother's birth father, didn't stick around for very long. And shortly after he and his wife had Barbara and her siblings, he was out of the picture. And then Stevie's grandmother, Stevie's mother's mother, went and married another person who formally adopted Barbara and her siblings, and is what Stevie, I believe, all speculation, probably seems to know best as her grandfather. And after that information, I don't know what he looks like. I don't know anything more about him. I just know about the maternal grandfather. I think that's the word. Like, why I'm spacing out, because I know this. I know in my head, but I'm talking live, so I'm just second guessing myself. After leaving Stevie's grandmother, it looks like he married a couple more times. And his name was Edward Nepple, Stevie's birth grandfather on her mother's side. Edward Nepple. And the paperwork that came with the photos that I got, I think might be either from his estate or his second or possibly third wife's estate, because there's a lot of photos, but there's so much pertaining to Stevie and Barbara that I'd find it hard to believe that this other lady, her name was Doris, his second or third, I think his third wife, would have this paperwork. It didn't make any sense to me unless she accidentally had it. But they divorced themselves so long ago that I would find it surprising that if she passed away, that this stuff would be in her possession. I looked up Edward Nepple's information, and he passed away I'm trying to see here, I can't remember, in 1987. So it was Edward Nepple, which was Stevie's grandfather on her mother's side, and Barbara Nix's mother, Stevie's mother's mother, was Alice June Harwood, was her maiden name, but Nepple was married name. Yeah. So anyway, so that's where I think this paperwork came from. So I know I'm getting a little convoluted here. I apologize. Try to follow. It'll be a test later. But anyway, so this paperwork just was crazy. It came, but there was a lot about Barbara in here, and there was also stuff about her. And I find all this stuff really interesting. It's not, if you think it's creepy or anything like that, I feel kind of weird, but I don't, because it's just out there, and I am very proud and happy to have it because I think it's neat. It's staying in my collection. It gains me nothing. I'm not trying to gain anything from it. I just think it's neat. But what I did is I did scrapbook all the stuff. So the first page in the scrapbook would start out in 1972, and there was a lot of photos. I don't know who a lot of these people are, but I do know that this first page right here, like I said, this was a letter from this lady. Her name was Doris, to Edward, which was Stevie's grandfather. This was a photo that was in some of the paperwork, and I believe, I don't know. I don't know that any of these people are him, but this is him. This is definitely him. And then this was another letter written from this lady. She had great handwriting, by the way. And in addition, there was an article here, and she is somewhere in this picture. I'm not sure. This Doris lady, and it's when she was still married to Edward. And this is just her. She had done something at a hospital or something like that. So there's that article. So that it's cool, but it doesn't really pertain to Stevie. I mean, it's background family. through marriage. I don't even know if Stevie knew this lady. I don't know. Not my business. But it's just kind of cool that it was all there. But what does get interesting is from here on out. So on the next page, this picture is included. Now, from a distance, you can see that's clearly Barbara. But when you get closer, you can see how terribly, terribly damaged it is. In addition, there's this photo, and I know perfectly well that that's not Stevie. Boy, it sure does look like her at first glance, which I thought was pretty cool. But on this table, there are some names underneath, and it says, this. I wrote underneath it, this appears to read left to right, Edward, a nephew, other family members, and by the looks of it, on the writing underneath the picture and the writing that I've seen in the letters and on the envelope, it looks like it could have been this lady Doris's handwriting. But because I got all this information and there's still more to come, I did a little research and I was finding out a little bit about Stevie's mother's side of the family. So this is kind of all my research. And like I said, this was a birth, we call it birth, the words are on the tip of my tongue, like nexus. Anyway, like where they calculate how many people were born around this time, and census. Census, is that the right word? Geez, maybe it's too late to be doing this video. Anyway, so this was here, it was Edward, and then underneath here it says Alice and some other names. Those are her siblings. So Alice was Stevie's grandmother. Alice and her siblings. And then here I have date of birth on the rest of the people here. And then this was Stevie's mother's birth here. So I just kind of put this together for me when I got all these photos, trying to research who the people were. I tried to piece together what I could of the family. So after Edward and Alice, Stevie's grandmother, married, like I said, he left Alice. Alice went on to marry a gentleman named, his last name was Meeks, Meeks. And where did I write that down? Audie, Auddie, Meeks. And I know for a fact that Audie adopted Barbara and her siblings. I'm so sorry. It all made sense to me earlier when I typed it all out. See, if you could read the book and you could just go through, you'd get this out. But it is all really interesting. And this is all paperwork that I received. These pictures, all these pictures, this was part in the paperwork. All this other stuff I put together myself because I found this really interesting. The letters, the pictures. So I was just trying to find out who these people were when I got it. And it was just really kind of an eye-opener. So moving on. This is definitely this Doris lady. So this is definitely, and she was his, I think, I kept saying second or third, but I think she was his third marriage. I think he married somebody else in between, but I can't be sure of that. But I don't know why I have that in my head, that he married a second lady and then a third lady, but she's either two or three. And this is her, and this is, again, Stevie's grandfather. So this would be like step grandma. And this is her as well. Then these are pictures of their home, their little dog. I don't know, all this was in the paperwork. It's in there because I got it like that. And all these pictures are from 1973. And the letter that she'd written to him, like, see, but I think that they were already divorced by this time. But the letter was something, I'm not going to read you the whole thing, but it was like, I want to thank you for the jam. Like, they stayed pretty friendly and stuff, and her letters were really nice back and forth. She's telling him about, her family and this and that. So everything would be on her side, of course, not on Edward's side. So this is all not only step grandmother to Stevie, but all like, and stepmother to Barbara, but all completely unrelated to Stevie's direct family, Stevie and Chris. I would guess that probably Stevie and Christopher probably did not even know these people at all. I would imagine, maybe in passing, maybe once or twice. It's all speculation, but there's that. And then the next page after that, again in this person's possession, was a letter addressed to Mr. Nepple from February 1976, and this was really cool. So this again is what leads me to believe that this was from Mr. Nepple's estate, but there's so much paperwork from this Doris lady that I just can't be sure. But this was a really cool article on Barbara Nix, and Barbara having opened her shop, which later became Silver Springs, but beforehand it was not. It was just this individual shop with another lady. So I thought this was really cool, this article on Stevie's mother, because, we all know and love Silver Springs, even though I personally never got to be there. I'd go there myself. But I just thought something like that was so rare and so unusual to find something about Barbara, in the Scottsdale, Arizona paper that would be probably impossible to find nowadays. Joy Houghton and Barbara Nix. So there she is, Barbara, just looking freaking adorable as ever. So cute. You can totally see where Stevie gets the cuteness from. Just that smile. Look at that smile. You just completely see Stevie in it. So again, that was really neat. I don't see why Doris would have this in her stuff. So again, I think it could be Edward's stuff. So that's some of the letters that were for now. And we'll get back to them later in the future, but because things take a weird turn later. But that was some of the early stuff, and this is only part of the paperwork that I got. All these pictures that I just showed you. So again, he had this really kind of ragged picture of Barbara, which I thought was really sweet. I would love to repair it. But like I said, it's weird how the damage is, because from a distance, it's, you can see it, but when you get up close, it's just bubbled in. It's weird. It's almost like a hologram that when you turn it the right way, you can see her. But, it was kept with love. I mean, that was his daughter. So, it's kind of weird. So these are internet pictures of Stevie that I put together. So trying to go into the full, Stevie after even though we went to 1976 in that one article about her mother, still I was trying to preface the photo album with, 1972, Stevie's family on her mother's side, and then this other stuff. And I just put this, even though it's 1976, in there just because it went with the early photos that were in here. So then I started again with Stevie Nicks photos. So nothing really new or, unique, but kind of cute. And then these were finds that I found at a company called Winco, which I've said I'll talk about often. All the cards, these were a card set that Winco had put together of basically almost all the photos that were out of the Stevie Nicks's or Lindsey Buckingham's high school yearbooks and such. So we have some of the stuff with Fritz. I think this is Robin, Lindsay, Stevie, Javier, who's part of Fritz. This guy, Calvin, I want to say that Calvin was, he was part of Fritz, but I also, it seems to me like Stevie dated this guy. Maybe I'm wrong. And then Lindsay with the date at a prom. And then this later photo of Stevie. This was somebody, actually, I grew up in the Bay Area, so somebody had actually brought me this copy from a yearbook or newspaper, something they had, and something on the next page I'll show you. And then these cards that were from Winco on the back is this, what you see here. So I just copied that because I wanted the cards, the original cards in there, with the picture facing. And then I just Xeroxed the information about the people that was on the back and just made the little parts to add on to the picture. So the other newspaper copy somebody brought me was this page here, which was really cool. I think it's out of a yearbook, but kind of rare. Then we have some, just some random pictures some friends had made me from the internet. Fritz early, and then Stevie posing with Javier later. This is a poster where it shows Fritz was performing with Ike and Tina Turner. It's just a copy of something from the internet. I don't have any kind of original stuff of Buckingham Nicks, really. I'm in the works to get a copy of the Rolling Stone magazine where Buckingham Nicks is reviewed for the first time, but that would be about it. There is some really cool stuff out there, newspapers and such, pertaining to Buckingham Nicks with photos, concert reviews, and stuff like that. Some other collectors have some really neat stuff. I unfortunately really have next to nothing about Buckingham Nicks early on. That I was able to get copies and things like this were very fortunate in my time. These are original photos that I have of Stevie and Lindsay young. Definitely having joined Fleetwood Mac, I think, or just, on the cusp there, but still kind of like Buckingham Nicks years. Copy of a Buckingham Nicks ticket. This is artwork by a girl that I brought up in the past named Jasmine, who does excellent artwork. So it's a real cool thing to have this little sticker of hers that she made. And then this is a copy from the internet of supposedly a gad's worth of proof sheets that have come out. Quite some time ago on eBay, there's like 20 proof sheets that came out, and the price escalated to just like a absolutely insane amount of money. I think it was like a test run to see if they would sell or something like that. I don't think anybody actually sold them. I don't even know if anybody actually really had them to begin with. I think they just might have had copies of something, but that's just me and speculation. Because they have not surfaced again. They some come up, but the spread that these people had online, maybe they just wanted to see how much they could possibly get for them. I just don't know, but pretty cool stuff. They're out there. And again, with the Buckingham Nicks album coming out pretty soon, I know that they've gotten a hold of something, maybe themselves just a copy from the internet, because it looks like in the booklet, like they show some of the outtakes. But despite no proof sheets being available, it is funny to me that there are some outtakes that are available. And, this is a copy of the cover. This is supposedly an outtake. This one is a copy. But these two are original. This one I had signed by Lindsay. I'm sorry, this is a copy. Sorry about that. No, this is an original. This is an original, and this is a copy. My apologies. And this I had signed by Lindsay from the stage during the Say You Will concert, which I was super, super stoked to have done, but just like the little LB on there just kind of bummed me out and just kind of ruined a a really rare photo. It's cool, but I would have liked Lindsey Buckingham. What did I expect? He's doing it from the stage, but he's very gracious about it and super like, oh my god, like he literally like, where'd you get these? And like we were going to sit around and chat. But I am very, very stoked to have it at all, let alone have it signed, even though it's just a little LB. It's just kind of a rash signature. It's just looks like little squiggles. Yeah, I'm sorry. This one I would love. There is a proper. This is a proper press photo. There's not. I don't think there's a whole press kit, but there is a press photo that's Polydor Records, Buckingham Nicks, and somebody has it signed, which is pretty cool. This is a complete copy though of everything. I've messed up on that. I'm sorry. And then this is something from the internet, but this is original. And then these were photos that were found. Somebody had these for sale. A gentleman named Brian Kane, I believe. These are some really unique. They're not super rare or anything like that, but they are pretty cool. Being as it's so hard to get anything, so a little bit out of order because I just showed you Buckingham Nick stuff, and now we're back to kind of Fritz and. These are photos of Lindsey that I feel are around the very end of Buckingham Nicks and very beginning of Fleetwood Mac, in my opinion. That's because they look so much like these. It hardly even looks like them, but that just reminds me of this photo right here. I mean, kind of both of them. But a very young Stevie. I was told that these were Buckingham Nicks pictures, but then I don't know, somebody else has told me now that they're Fleetwood Mac photos. I've never seen Stevie perform in that outfit though with Fleetwood Mac, but there is, with the drum kit and everything that looks behind me, sure does look like mixed stuff, so could very well be. And then some more from that time. This really looks like Buckingham Nicks because her hair's all foofy. It's hard to say. But cool early shots. And being as these were taken from a one of those Lady of the Stars by Ed Winstonson, I think. These were pictures that were in a book. One got torn apart, not by me, by somebody else. So I think these were in that book. And these are definitely Buckingham Nicks photos, these two here. And her hair just looks so much foofier there that it kind of reminds me of this one here. But back to an early Fleetwood Mac photo. I think there's a date there. So going back to the stuff, the paperwork that came with it, before I show you this picture, I'm going to read you this quick letter. This was a letter addressed to Ed Nepple from Barbara Nick, Stevie's mother. So from Stevie's mom to her grandfather. And it was, Dear Dad, attached, please find the 2 latest magazines featuring Fleetwood Mac. I took them apart so that I did not have to mail the whole magazine. I especially like the full page of Stevie on page 35. I hope you enjoy the article. Please remember that these magazines put a lot of untruths. I hope you have been considering Christmas. Christmas has always been very special, and we would love to have you join our little group. I spent yesterday with Mom. She seems better, but not well yet. I wish I could spend more time with her. It seems like I am constantly on the run. Business is picking up a bit, thank goodness. Ida and I talked tonight. She and Clarence are fine. Well, Dad, it is midnight and I have to take my bath and get to bed. Thanks for remembering my 49th. Lovingly, Barbara. So it looks like he might have sent her a birthday card or something for her 49th birthday. But included in this stuff was not only the letter, but the magazine photo that he had sent her. She had sent him, sorry. So the letter, and then there were several magazine stuff, but this was there. And so there's the full page thing, and then she had written Stevie there. So that's Barbara's writing, which I thought was really cool. And this was dated, I thought I had written the date on this. I wrote down letter to Barbara's father about his granddaughter Stevie, page 35, described in letter. Following photos are from Christmas. So it looks like, so anyway, she had written her father, thanking her for her, what I guess was a card from him for her 49th birthday, and then asking him if he would join them for Christmas. And then she enclosed this photo of Stevie, who was becoming a big rock star at this time. So that's really cool, right? Telling him about his granddaughter. So then the photos that I acquired from the people that I started off this whole story with were, this is the grand finale, so I hope you enjoy these, were these photos, which are freaking, how cool. Obviously Christmas, obviously he got together, and Stevie Nicks showed up. So here's young, adorable Stevie. With her grandfather. Now, again, don't know, I highly doubt it's the first time she met him or anything like that, but yeah. So this was the photo that was somebody had been offered, and then somebody had this photo. This is a photo that somebody was offered, and when I got in touch with the sellers, they also had this photo. So I was able to acquire both of these photos. And it's very clear that it's from the letter because, I would guesstimate the same year. I mean, by the look of Stevie, she's certainly not much older. And it was just ironic that it came with all that stuff. So I was thrilled. Again, these are super rare because they're with family, and it's super awesome for me to be able to identify them. Freaking loving that outfit. Yeah, and so it's really cool. So in the future videos, ironically, in getting these, I had actually already had a photo of another visit with Stevie and this grandfather. So that's why it was really special maybe to get these two, because I had already known who this person was. And unfortunately, there was no more paperwork to go with it, but there is paperwork that will come up in future videos more around the 80s. And Doris took a small nosedive. What had begun as, like I said, really polite letters between herself and her ex-husband turned into freaking bizarre letters later. And I want to read them to you because they're funny, but they're not, because I think she might have had dementia or something, and I'm certainly not picking on her, and I am certainly not making fun of that. I have a background in CNA and having taken care of Alzheimer's patients, so it's certainly no joke. But at the same time, it's like, these sweet letters, one letter, thank you for the jam, and then yeah, you'll see them when I get to them. But yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this. This is really a big deal if you're a fan of Stevie and a collector, because these are definitely never before seen, highly personal and rare because they're family photos. Nothing you're going to find in a magazine or anything. And I am just absolutely feel truly blessed to have them. And I'm so grateful. I mean, how would you not, how cool is it to have this paperwork? And that Barbara sent this saying, this is your granddaughter, and she wrote Stevie on it. And then she mentions coming together at Christmas time, and then there are photos from that time. So I think it was just really meant to be that I had all the paperwork that went with it. And although I got confused in telling you who was who and trying to explain everything. I hope you got through that with me and appreciated that. And I hope you kind of dug it too. It can't just be me who thinks that's kind of neat stuff to have. Um, and yeah, let me know what you think. And I hope you enjoyed this. And I will continue um, this album that I have. Did I already show this? I think I might have put this up, but this is the first Fleetwood Mac White album. Again, what I think I forgot to mention is that because I had started this project in '97, thinking it was only going to be one album, there are some pages that I've never fixed that kind of have some Fleetwood Mac era and some rumors. They're not going to always be perfectly chronological. I have taken apart many pages to make it as chronological as possible, but they're not going to be perfect, and they're mine. It doesn't matter that they're not perfect. It's a hobby. It's an interest. I enjoy it. So, but this book is as best as I can do, in chronological order. And it will just be like 1975. It won't be like January 75, February. No, I'm not that good. There might be a couple times where I'll come up with stuff like that, but highly unusual. So again, I hope you enjoyed this and thank you so much for joining me and have a great night. We'll see you next time. Bye.